Well, yes, indeed, it is in the front burner, and it is certainly raising passions and emotions as well. But let us hope that we can have a very clear or further understand precisely what the federal government is about with this Ruga settlement, and perhaps what the objections of those who have raised objections to it are. We have with us in the studio Senator Okejev, who is representing Benue Northwest. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thanks for having me.
And we also have with us Dr. Umar Ado, who is a historian and a public policy analyst. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Dr. Ado. When you heard of this Ruga settlement policy, did you understand it? What did you make of it?
I really don't understand it, because Ruga to me is not a Fulani word, first and foremost. It is a Hausa word describing a Fulani settlement. So from this perspective, it shows that it's a solution coming maybe not from the Fulani, but from the Hausa. But I suppose it is aimed at resolving the crisis between the herders and the farmers that has been raging in the country for years. That is the herders moving around all over the country, destroying farms, then having reaction from the farmers, killing people, being killed, and so on and so forth. So the solution is actually to settle them. And settling them is ranching them. So when I was contesting for governor in Adamawa State, I had made it very clear that we will settle the Fulanis, we will settle the herders. The reason is simple. It is a multi-trillion naira industry. 90% or almost 90% of Nigerians depend on the pastoral Fulani, the major custodians of herds in the country for meat, for milk, for geese, for cheese, for butter, for manure, for so many things. And also, a large number of our people make their living, in transporting, milking, butchering, and so on of herds. And also, a large number of our farmers, rural farmers in the villages, depend on the Fulanis who produce the bulls for Halloween, for cutting, for farm produce, and so on and so forth. So to any reasonable person, such an industry should not be left wandering about. You need to settle them, organize them, and then make them productive. It tells you, therefore, that the Fulanis contribute heavily in the economic and the nutritional needs of the Nigerian society. If, for example, they say that the Dutch people, they need land in Nigeria to come and establish ranches in order to produce all these things that I have said, many Nigerians will give. So the whole thing is just maybe political, because the Fulanis, over the years, they said there was the jihad. Since the jihad of Sheikh Usman Dan Fodio, the Fulanis are not being looked upon as just contributors, to the Nigerian economy and Nigerian nutrition, but that they are conquerors and they want to establish emirates and so on and so forth. So,
I'm just curious. When you first of all said you didn't understand it, what didn't you understand?
I didn't understand. When they said the Ruga system. Now, the Ruga, I'm from a Ruga. In full day, that is the language of the Fulanis, they call it Walde. Walde, that is the place of settlement known as by the Fulanis. So if they said that we wanted to establish Walde, I would have understood it better. But if you say Ruga, Ruga means local settlement of the Fulanis. Are you trying to tell me that you are going to settle the Fulanis here and there, all over, or whatever? Or are you ranching the place, for the purpose of keeping the cows and then by using modern technology or whatever, bringing the food to the cow instead of the cow moving to get the food? One of the reasons why why our meat in Nigeria and so on, the Fulani meat is so hard, is so tough and so on, is because you subject the cattle into roaming about all over the country.
Well, we'll come to that shortly. I mean, you were talking about what it means and so far, so on and so forth. But, Senator, I don't know if you listened to Garba Shehu yesterday, the President's Senior Special Advisor on Media and Publicity on the news at 10, when he was saying that the Ruga settlement being proposed is the same thing as ranching, because your state government has kicked very strongly against this. They say that the proposal goes against their existent laws and that it's not in tandem with it. But, the President's Special Assistant was saying that this is the same thing as ranching. And you heard there the governor of Plateau State, who also happens to be the chairman of the Northern Governors Forum. He said this is voluntary. What exactly is the protest about in Benue State?
Okay, so it looks like, first, the federal government has not even articulated itself very well on this issue. I think sometime last year, around June, the federal government, after a National Economic Council meeting, came out and said that they were rolling out a livestock transformational plan, and about 12 states were selected as pilot states. Now, nothing was heard of that until this year we are hearing of Ruga. Is it the same thing? Well, I assume it was the same thing since they appear to go similar. I mean, they appear to be similar to each other. Until when a Miati Allah spokesman came out to say that they were cooperating with the office of the vice president on this issue, the vice president came out, the office of the vice president came out to distance itself from it. They say what they are concerned with was a livestock plan, transformational plan, not the Ruga thing. So it means that even from the side of the federal government, they have not even articulated themselves well. So how will you expect the targeted people to understand what it's all about? That is one. On the one hand, again, they will say that this thing is voluntary, like they are saying. And then the federal government will hear a spokesman of the federal government coming out to say that, no, about every state, land has been gazetted in every state across the country.
Which one of the spokespersons said that?
I mean, this is in the public domain. I can't, but that is what was said, that land has been gazetted. So, but let's take it this way. If this is voluntary, why would they take it to Benue, for instance? Where Benue State has already has a law existing on ranching that is there. Some three local governments were selected across the senatorial districts of the state to host this Ruga thing. So if it is voluntary, why is that? Instead of explaining to the country what this is all about, the arrogance of saying mischief makers, it is mischief makers that are going about opposing this. I think they should, concentrate on explaining to us what exactly it is. Because for somebody that comes from Benue, we are tired of this crisis that has led a lot of our people to their early graves. If you go to Benue now, you have thousands of people in IDP camps. That is what we should be trying to resolve, rather than calling people mischief makers because they are opposing a program they don't even understand.
Mm. So for you, there is no clarity about, don't you think that there's another way? You're a senator. If, for instance, you had a delegation, for instance, of those from Benue State, perhaps maybe even the governor, to seek clarity on what is going on precisely, you don't think you would have been able to get it?
Well, let's go by the explanation that they're giving. The explanation is that it's voluntary. If it's voluntary, and of course it can't be any other way, because the Land Use Act says that the land is in the custody of the state government. Mm-hmm. So if it's in the custody of the state government, how can the federal government come with a policy that seeks to take that land or use that land without the permission of the state government? So, okay,
let me put this more directly. Have you tried to seek clarification from the federal government?
Well, the federal government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, got in contact with the Ministry of Agriculture at the state level and tried to explain what the project is all about. But the more they explained, the more it got complicated, because they were saying that this was as a result of a meeting that was held by the National Economic Council last year. But the National Economic Council last year talked about a livestock transformational plan, which is different from what they are bringing now.
I know that there was also a Food and Security Council committee now that was being explained by the governor of Ekiti State, who also happens to be the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum. He also maintained, indeed, that this program was voluntary. Do you think that there has been sufficient clarity? When you look at all the people whom we've heard speaking on this particular matter, do you think that there has been sufficient clarity on what this Ruga is all about, this Ruga settlement plan?
No, I don't think there's sufficient clarity. I told you earlier that I really do not understand it. If they had explained it very clearly, I think most states would have accepted it, because actually it is, it is something that, from my own viewpoint, it is something that I would want to happen. I would not want to leave an industry of this magnitude, to rot. I would want to organize it. So I think the whole thing is a matter of approach. How the federal government approach the whole thing, and it's not so very clear. It's, and given the sentiments and the emotions over these herders and farmers, settlers and the owners of the land, sort of, that's been going on since 1986 in the country. It has given these emotions such that nobody will trust a system that is not very clear. It will be seen as if, and especially President Buhari, who is being tagged as Fulani, Fulanization, everything. So everything has been taken to the roof. So a policy of this nature, therefore, needs not only to be clearly approached, but to be carefully approached.
Senator, what would you suggest? I mean, you have heard from, Dr. Ado, the benefits of settling farmers, and I think even your own government did say that ranching is the way to go, that they believe that it's no longer fashionable, for lack of a better phrase now, for people to be roaming about in the name of trying to, graze their cattle or look for food for their herds. And they are saying that they should settle down. Would you oppose this policy if you understood it?
You see, agriculture is on a concurrent list in our constitution, meaning that the federal can participate, the state can participate. But to the extent that land is exclusively under the custody of the governors, it means that the matter should be explained to governors in such a way that they would take their own steps to try to resolve the matter, rather than sitting in Abuja and bringing a policy that seeks to cut across the whole country. That is where the problem arises. If you talk to Imo State, okay, this is what this is all about. Please find a way of resolving this. You talk to Benue, you talk to other states, so that they'll find a local solution to it. But if you sit in Abuja and try to spread across the states, I'm sure no amount of explanation will suffice, because of what has been happening, because of the troubles, the herders, farmers clashes, and the killings and everything that has been going on. Now, I think it would be very, very difficult to try to convince people that way.
But is there anything wrong with putting heads together? Because if we understand that there is actually a committee on food insecurity, and that part of this, the solutions for what we're seeing now came out of that, and that committee has in its membership governors of states that have been affected by the crisis, and they're the ones brainstorming on these issues. Can they come up with solutions that could work for most people? That's
the point I'm making, that you can put heads together, come up with solutions, but localize it across the states. Localize it. You can't have a common solution in all of the states, because there are certain states that may not even want, even if they want to, may not even have the land to give. I mean, this is something that is may not have a common solution across the state. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Let's go to Lagos and take some questions.
Well, Dr. Arjo, in some of your opening statements, just a couple of things I need clarification on, if you could shed some light on that. You did say that this was part of the solution to curbing these herdsmen and farmers clashes and killings that had happened over time. and this will ensure that the herders get a place in order to avoid these clashes moving forward. But if this is the solution for the herders, what do you think is for the farmers?
The farmers cannot use all land. You need just a small portion of land, even in the shifting cultivation process to farm. You don't have to take every land. Therefore, it is live and let live. If you insist that you will not, you only want to live, you don't want to let live, then you find your life in difficulty. So the solution is for all. Because if you ranch these cattle, you put on the herders in one place, you have solved the problem of going to destroy farms. You have solved the problem of killing and revenge, and so on and so forth. So I think, in my own view, I think the solution is ranching. If you call it Ruga, fine. If you call it Walde, fine. Whatever you call it, but explain it clearly and approach it tactfully. I believe this is a solution that we all need. Besides, we are talking about ranching. Is ranching new in Nigeria? We have ranch in Obudu, we have ranch in Moka,
Dr. Ado, before you go ahead on that.
In Ondo before, and so on and so forth.
Before you go ahead on that, let me just...
these parts of the country.
Yeah, just a minute, if you will. There are farmers who have lost their produce, all of the goods or material, I beg your pardon, the items that they planted. So they just wonder, so if this is being touted as a solution for the herders, what about they who don't have access to any government official or anybody? There hasn't been any solution or any consideration for them. So they wonder, what then? Shouldn't there be thoughts or some sort of compensation or address what they have lost?
Yeah, I think it is all about equity. If you come to equity, lawyers say you come with a clean hand. If the farmers have lost, it is the responsibility of the federal government or any government. It could be a local government, it could be a state government, it could be a federal government. The government that initiates the policy, it is the responsibility of that government to resolve the farmers' issue, to compensate them, and so on. And in order to stop the destruction, you now bring up a policy that halts this crisis, this fight that leads to all the killings and the destruction. So, and this is the policy. The federal government calls it Ruga. To me, it is okay for the federal government to initiate this policy. But in fact, we shouldn't even have waited for the federal government to initiate this policy. The states should have initiated these policies. The local government should have initiated this policy, because this is a problem that affects everybody. Whenever there is crisis, it happens in a local government, in a state, and the federal government. So the solution should have been bottom up. But because of the dysfunctional way Nigerian policies are being enacted, the way Nigerian government is being run, we allow it to be top-bottom. And this is the problem. So I believe this ranching is a solution for both sides. You compensate the farmers for their losses. You should also compensate the herders for their losses. It's equity.
When you also say...
It's not that the farmers have lost, the herders did not lose.
Okay. Well, when you, in the opening comments as well, you did say that the herders contribute a lot to Nigerian society. So I know you run a research firm. Could you just furnish us with the standard of measurement, how you came to that conclusion? And then should state funds be used to set up this settlement?
Well, I have not taken statistics of all these, but you just have to look around and see who are those having the cards in the country. 80% of them are the pastoral Fulanis. And it's more than 70% of the meat consumption is on the heart. Milk, cheese, manure and so on. When I was growing up as a kid, I grew up, in a Ruga myself. I know, and my father had a lot of cattle. So there used to be a system where the farmers would come and say, please, let your cattle come and stay in my plot of land during the dry season, so that in the rainy season it becomes manure for me. And so it was going on like this. They will move from here, they will to that place, they will move from that place to that place. You see, herding, there are two types of herding. There's one that you call oscillation, whereby there is a certain route that you move at the end of every year. You know that they will come, then they will return. Then there is another kind of herding that move just randomly all over. And I had somebody say the other time that the Fulanis, maybe I'm not talking for the Fulanis, although I am one, that the Fulanis do not respect the territories of farmers and so on and so forth. They don't respect authority and so on and so forth. That is, okay, maybe so, but it is actually as a result of the lifestyle of the pastoralists. Pastoralists generally, nomads generally, they do not, have boundaries in terms of artificial boundaries. Don't forget, the Fulanis have been in the West African coast from Dakar in Senegal to Bagarmi in Chad, more than 1,000 years. They've been roaming around and so on and so forth. So by the 19th and 20th century, when these artificial countries came into being and were demarcated, this is Nigeria, this is Chad, by European conquerors and so on and so forth, many of the nomads did not really understand this thing, and they continued in this in their traditional way of living. So it is the responsibility of government, especially the government that took over from the Europeans, that are part and parcel of the African locality, that understand this thing, to have established a policy, formulated a policy that bring the Fulanis, in line with government objectives. When Professor Jibril Aminu was Minister of Education, we have seen how he came up, with foresight of, nomadic education. The whole idea was to educate these people and then orient them in such a way that they will be part and parcel of the civilization, of the modern civilization. But when you leave people like that, and thinking that they will come to their own senses and understand things by themselves, people who never go to school, people who never mingle with people, and so on and so forth, it's a recipe for crisis. And this is the crisis that ultimately we are facing.